making it real. Turning rough edges into something that heals.
Welcome to Concrete and Glitter. I'm your host today, Benay Pink, and I'm here with Nick. Nick, tell me, before we get into the deeper conversations, who are you when nobody is watching?
I'm honestly just always my biggest fan. I think that's who I am.
How would your childhood friends describe you?
That weird kid. Really. Like, I was always the one doing splits. I was always the one like back bending. I was always the one who just liked all these odd things. I just did a bunch of weird things, man. Like, I guess everybody like is kind of a weird kid, you know? But I don't know, like coming also from a small town, it felt different, you know?
And in what way were you a weird kid in a small town?
Like, you are so aware that everybody's always staring at you. You're so aware that everybody's always noticing you, so you become self-conscious. But it's odd because it didn't really bother me as much until, you know, the bullying started. You know, like, once that phase hit, it's like, okay, well, now I need to like start being more aware of what I'm doing, what people are thinking and all of that. But before that, like, it was always just confidence.
What kind of kid were you growing up?
A bit of an outdoorsy, indoorsy type of thing. I was raised by the TV. Yes, my parents did a great job too, but I was raised by the TV, that's for sure. But I loved spending time outdoors. I climbed the trees. I would always just be gallivanting in the streets, like that typical thing of like come back home before, you know, the lights come on. I mean, at least I followed the rules. My brother never did, but at least I did. But a variety of an indoor, outdoor, a good childhood, really, a good one.
So were you always this confident growing up?
Yes. So I have this story, right, where we went to a festival. Oh, sorry, we didn't go to a festival. My parents were part of this festival's organizational thing, right? And I remember I was 5 years old, and my mom just drops me off at the gate. She's like, tell the lady at the sign-in that your name is on the book. And then you go inside and you go where you need to go.
You know what, let me get more relaxed here, because this is getting good.
And mind you, I'm going there alone. I'm 5 years old. And I kid you not, I walk to that door and that lady still remembers me to this day. She catches me, whenever I visit my hometown, she catches me and she tells me the story each and every time, how she was just flabbergasted by my confidence. That I got to that desk and I was like, my name is Nico Janse van Rensburg. And my mom said my name is on this list, and she just lets me go in, and yeah, I walk solo through the entire festival. I know where I need to go, and I go there. Yeah, so confidence has always been there, and I've never lacked it. I thank my parents for that, honestly. So
I love that. Did you always know you'd become visible one day?
I don't think so, no. I knew I was always meant for the stage in a way, you know, like I was always the performer of the group, you know. And in a small town, your comparison to like big city life, that performer is not the same thing. But for that small town, I was the performer, let me tell you. Whenever I could grab attention, that's my dad's fault. Whenever I could grab attention, I would do it. I just love being the center of everybody's world, and I think that also comes with my Leo energy, you know, center of the solar system, or what is it? I don't know. I don't do science.
So you're from a small town in Limpopo. What was growing up there like?
You know, it's a hunting town, but I'm grateful we are not hunters. But everybody is dressed in khaki and shorts, and they drive these big bakkies, and I think whoever really, that my parents were not those people. We're just your typical Afrikaners. Not your Boere Afrikaners, but your Afrikaner Afrikaners. apparently there is a difference, and I think you can see it in the attire that we wear, and also just a lot of other things. But it was kind of intimidating in a way, but also not, because again, thank to my parents for raising me with such confidence and being able to stand up for myself, knowing my things that I need to know. But it was slightly intimidating, like knowing that you are different from everybody that's around you, and everybody is just like, it's like the same print of, like, so it was just odd trying to fit in, when I was born to stand out. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. And what does the bushveld smell like to you?
Oh my goodness, I miss it so much. I'm in Cape Town right now, obviously. And, I miss home. It's just, firstly, the warmth. It's like, I want to say baking in an oven, but that sounds bad. But it's like, I don't want to say baked cookies, because that's not right. Just like a combination of potjiekos, braaivleis, and I don't know, that earthy smell when rain hits the ground? Just that. Just that. I don't know. It smells peaceful. Yeah. Smells like peace.
What do you think people misunderstand about small town life?
I think all the stereotypes are correct. I don't think people misunderstand anything. Because, small towns are really just, it's close community, it's everybody supports you type of thing. But with that being said, there is a lot of gossiping that happens. I live for the gossip, honestly, because I always find out things about myself that I didn't know from people, and I'm like, oh, is that what I did last weekend? Where with city life, I suppose you get that everywhere, but with city life, I think there's less of community unless you've joined an actual community. Like, you can't just go to your neighbor and ask for sugar, where I guess in some areas you can. But where with small town, I think that's always the case. And what I love about small towns, let me just say this, what I love about small towns is the fact that, especially up north, the northerners just know how to greet people. Okay, like, we know, like, when you wave back. When you say hi back. In the city, Cape Town, guys, I don't know what's going on. Because why do I wave at you and then you don't wave back? Why do I say hi and then you just like either stare me in the face or you walk past me? Like, what is up with that? So, no, I think the stereotypes are right. I don't think people misunderstand much.
What kind of environment did you grow up in?
Honestly, a very loving one. I had two very supportive parents who still support me dearly. Siblings who always spoke well about me, and honestly just a lot of privilege. Like, I wouldn't say, we didn't grow up financially, up there or anything, but we were secure enough for me to, be able to go to excursions and things like that. So I'm grateful for all the opportunities my parents got to give me. They're the ones who even put me through university, so not a lot of like kids can say that, that's happened. Mind you, I was the first in my family, but that's besides the point. But I did grow up like very stable household, loving parents, supportive siblings, and also great friends.
Were you always surrounded by nature?
Yeah, in a way. Compared to, I guess, Cape Town again, definitely, like in my hometown, I think everybody has a fruit tree. But not to make it sound like, it's like the tropical whatever sphere of everything. It's the bushveld at the end of the day, But everybody has a fruit tree. We've got mango trees, and you get people in town who like trade the mangoes for the lychees and bananas and so on, That sounds crazy. And also before like all of the shopping centers and stuff that were built that's now there, you would like be able to walk or drive to school, and like on the odd day you would find a warthog running past you, or like a bokkie, like a duikertjie or whatever, you know, like the wildlife I think in my town is also a bit on the serious side because we've got a snake eye on speed dial. So everybody in that town should know how to deal with a snake when it shows up, because that snake man, he shows up at your school and teaches you what to do and how to approach that situation. But yeah, no, crazy story, if I may. There was once a hippo outside of my school that got lost from the river. Now it sounds like I like live next to the river, but that's not the case either. No, shame, it just got lost a bit. And also there was one incident that I can't really talk about, but for some reason, somehow, I'm not gonna name names or say who it did, but there was a crocodile in my swimming pool once.
That's amazing. Would you say that growing up in the bushveld shaped your creativity in any way?
Yes and no. I think for some people, or like a lot, creativity is something you can definitely build, right? But I think for some of us, it comes naturally. But your environment does have an impact, I think, in a way. Because I mean, I think my creative thinking or whatever would have been even further developed had I been in an environment where we had art school and things like that, you know, which we didn't. But thankfully, I was part of a group where we were the first seniors to like have art as a subject, which is odd for the town that I grew up in. It's a mining town, goodness sakes. So not a lot of creatives live there. But there are those few ones. I mean, one creative thing that I was always inspired by and that I wanted to do but I wasn't allowed to do because my father didn't want me to do it, but I'm probably going to sign myself up to this in any case, was ballet. I wanted to do ballet. There was a ballet instructor in my hometown, which was one of those creative things that you can get exposed to, right? So my sister was doing ballet. And because she was doing ballet, I was like, why can't I, you know? But, you know, my dad felt otherwise about it. I understand, but I also don't get it at the same time because now with my adult money, I might just sign myself up for ballet. But I do always go back to my roots, I guess. Yeah.
Did you feel different growing up? Or did that realization only come later?
Oh, definitely. And I think this is every queer child. It's not just me growing up in a small town. Every queer child, I think, knows that they are different from the other people, but they don't know it until they realize it. You know, that's the crazy part. It's like, I didn't know I was a queer child until, like, the first time I kissed a boy. But, yeah, no, it definitely felt different.
I see. And what did queerness look like to you in your town?
It wasn't really there. I mean, at most, we had the lesbians, which apparently they don't like being called lesbians in small towns, or at least not in my hometown. They prefer the term gay, which I find, okay, so you have some internalized homophobia issues that you're dealing with. Let me just say that to the lesbians of my hometown. But even they, like, stayed more closeted, you know? Like, I remember growing up, there was this one, I only knew about this one gay guy, actually. Well, not just about this one, but like the main guy in town. He owns a hair salon there. I'm not going to mention the hair salon's name or anything, but every person from my hometown knows this guy. But he's a homosexual who has a hairstylist thingy, and that's typical gay stuff. But hearing about him, you just think to yourself, but this is fascinating, actually, you know? And you want to know more, but like, you know, okay, well, that's taboo. You don't touch that territory. But yeah, there was a few other queer people also in my hometown. I mean, there was this one gay kid who also did ballet, which is also why I was upset that I couldn't do ballet, you know. But it was not a lot of representation, and I think everyone needs just a smidget of representation. Ugh, what am I saying? A smidget. We need loads of it.
So, did you have any queer role models growing up?
Like this? I mean, Honey, they could never. No. I mean, growing up as a kid, I looked a lot like my dad when he was a kid too. So, I mean, sure, but no, not as iconic as this. And I needed it. I think every child needs someone that they can truly relate to. Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm curious, did you ever feel like you had the need to leave your hometown to become someone else or to discover parts of yourself?
Yes. I couldn't wait to move out of my small hometown. Like, what do you mean? And just go, like, I didn't even know I was queer at that point. I just like wanted to leave and I knew that there was a reason. It's not like, again, I didn't grow up in a bad environment or anything. Maybe I grew tired of my parents for a bit there. Sorry, mom and dad. But I think I just felt stuck because I knew that the seed was planted, the stem has grown, but now the flower has to bloom, and there was no space for me to bloom because there was like a lid trapping me, you know? That's what it felt like. So I couldn't wait to leave. I mean, I wanted to go to Stellenbosch, study there, but I got placement in the Free State, which is also 8 hours away from my hometown, so I was happy. I was so happy. My mom was not impressed. She wanted me to, I think, be in Pretoria. I think every mother probably wants their child to stay at home. But no, I couldn't wait to leave and expand myself. Yeah.
And was there ever a moment where you realized, I cannot stay small?
You know what? I think so. I think every single queer person goes through a moment, I'm guessing, I don't know. A lot of gay guys, you know, go through that moment of like, oh, I need to be on stage, I need to be like, I don't know, Madonna or Diana Ross or like whoever really, and just like, I want to be that queen, you know, I want to be that girl. But I don't remember like a specific moment where that switch happened. I think maybe I was just born with that switch. Because I mean, I even remember like growing up, remember I told you my parents were part of the festival arrangements and things. So there was this one event where like we would, you know, pack all the chairs away and everything, but then me, being my queer boy 5-year-old self, I would stack those chairs, climb on top of them, mind you it's 20 chairs, 15 chairs, whatever up, and I would stand there singing, doing my thing, so yeah. So not a specific moment, but yeah.
What did survival look like for you at that time?
I mean, if we're thinking of 5-year-old me, thankfully not a lot of survival needed. I mean, I was so confident that I even ran away from home, walked to my grandfather's house, and yeah, like, I had guts. No survival instincts actually, because I could have been kidnapped. But at a later age, I guess, I suppose at a later age, survival became more a thing of, well, in my teens, let's say that. In my teens, it became a thing of don't get caught, you know? Because at that age, I didn't know I was gay. I didn't know that I was interested in guys. I knew I was doing a bit of promiscuity things, you know? But I didn't think much of it, because you brainwash it, you know, in a way. But survival there was just like trying not to get caught. And then at a later stage, I think later in life, like my early 20s, yeah, like trying not to get hit, I guess, which happened a few times even, so yeah.
So tell me, Nick, how does a queer boy from Limpopo become a professional architect?
Let me tell you, I never wanted to do architecture. Like growing up, I didn't see any architects. There was no one that I knew that was an architect, whose dad was an architect. I mean, like I know of good architecture in Limpopo, but no. I wanted to do medicine, and I think I just got lucky by being able to apply to universities. Well, it's a privilege really that I was able to apply to universities. I didn't get into med school, so I had to look for literally anything else. And architecture was one of those things that just stood out for me. I looked at what it's about, and I was like, well, it matches my personality and my interests, and that's how I'm here now as a professional architect.
And why architecture?
Well, like I said, it wasn't really a choice. Well, it was a choice, but it wasn't my first choice. I think when I also say that it was like a standout field, there's like it matches all the things that I like with regards to being creative, but also being a logical thinker, being diving into politics and history, and architecture really touches a lot of topics. And I appreciate that of myself as well. So I think architecture just matches my personality for those reasons.
Was creativity always part of your identity?
Yes, yes. Growing up also, that gay child, you just like get told now in Afrikaans, yeah, you get told, yeah, kyk, die kind is creatief, this child is creative. But it was also like kind of a talk down to like, oh, is he maybe otherwise? So no, I think all queer kids are kind of creative. Maybe not everyone. I know a few that are not. But a lot of us really play on that creative thing. So I would also say I was born with creativity. Yeah. I guess.
Do you think architecture gave structure to parts
So,
of yourself?
once you study architecture, you learn how to endure. But I suppose that's also any field when you go study, you learn how to just grind and get through it. But I think for a lot of institutions who know about architecture departments, you see these architecture students working day in and day out. Those lights in that studio is never off. We are just a people who we don't sleep. There was a lot of gossip about how we achieved not to sleep for so long. A lot of that gossip is not true. But yeah, no. Architecture just built on my ability to keep going. Yeah.
What does designing spaces mean to you emotionally?
In my master's year, we had these lectures, we set up a graph. Now, I can't, for the life of me right now, remember exactly what all those graphs, said. It was like a logical and feeling and whatever. But mine was definitely on the feeling and emotional side, a bit more stronger, which basically just means that I design, with my emotions. I look at something poetically. I'm very good at concepts. Concepts are, I think, my strong suit when it comes to design. But I do think about literally a lot of the backstory and, but yeah, I design with a lot of feeling and emotions and yeah.
Do you think queer people experience space differently?
I think everyone experiences space differently. Not to exclude queer people, but we have a tendency of finding queer spaces in straight spaces, if you know what I mean. I mean, I can't speak for the ballroom scene, for example, but I do know some of the history of it. Where it's a narrative of queer folk finding space, well, okay, in this case it was queer brown folk as well, but of queer folk, finding spaces and making it their own. And I think all queer people do that, I think everybody steps into a space, they know that, okay, they're not welcome here or they don't feel comfortable. So they go to the back corner of the room and they make that a different space, I think we just experience it differently that way, that we make space within the space that does not always cater for us.
Is there a connection between architecture and drag for you?
I think so. You know, I perceive a building, let me tell you this, I perceive a building as a drag queen. Because firstly you get the structure, which is like the bones of the body, you know, anatomy playing a role here. I mean, you've got the veins and everything, like, you know, the pipelines and the electric, whatever, wiring and so on. So a building is a person, definitely. Then you've got the skin of the building, you know, like the facade, is it plastered, is it brick, and so on. And then you get the drag of it. Okay, well, I mean, there is another theory on it where I guess, you know, the skin of the building is also just that silk screen layers and stuff that you add so that your building doesn't like heat up on the inside. That's technically the skin. But I think the building is also something you can dragify, you know, especially if you've got the money for it, because drag costs money, okay? Not everybody can drag up their buildings, and that's usually left for the high-end clients. So if you want your building to be a drag queen, you have to have money, and that's the same thing with doing drag. You need to be able to either get creative with it, be a very handy person, or you need to be able to pay to get those looks. Yeah.
Did becoming an architect feel impossible at any point to you?
Definitely. Yo, definitely, guys. And I think, again, that's one thing for every single degree out there, probably. I want to minimize education and psychology here, but don't come for me. No, but I think literally every degree you go through it where you feel like this is impossible, I can't do it, whatever, and you just persevere, man. You just go through the motions and you work through it and you get there. So at some point it did feel like an impossible task. There was one point I was very down and ready to quit, but I was also like, you know what happens if I quit and what happens if I don't? So I just kept going.
What did your success cost you?
I guess just a few sleepless nights, you know. A lot of causing myself to go mental, but nothing I think another person would not have gone through, you know.
And what are people surprised to learn about architects?
That it's not just about making pretty buildings or just drawing pictures or whatever. I think a lot of people are unaware how much admin goes into architecture. It's honestly an administrative job. You're constantly on the phone with council, you're constantly going through guidelines, you're constantly going through the sans part whatever's, like, you're constantly checking if your building is able to be okay. And then you still get the engineers' feedbacks and their inputs, and then you have to coordinate all of that to make your pretty building happen, you know. And a lot of the times there's also a lot of things that influence the design that, you know, you can't get that exact pretty look that you wanted to go for because there's like a few things. But let me tell you this as well. Anything you dream or design can be built. It's just going to become a bit more of an engineer's nightmare.
Did architecture become a way to build a life you didn't always see around you?
You know, it's weird looking back at, I guess, my student days and my career and everything now. And I never thought I would be sitting here, a whole professional architect, knowing that it's also shaped the way I think. You know, now I walk into spaces and I look at the ceilings, I look at the walls, I feel the textures, goodness, architects are obsessed with touching walls. Like, we have such a sensory kink, I guess you can call it. Like, we just, fetish. We have such a sensory fetish, and it's wild, but studying architecture has definitely shaped the way I see the world.
and I appreciate the degree for that. I don't really appreciate the salary I'm getting because of it, but I do appreciate, yeah, just how it allows me to think differently about things. So you're a professional architect and you do drag. Tell me about the first time you did drag. Oh, well, I guess a lot of my first time doing drag was like really just playing around with, eyeshadows and all of those things. Like, think of this, like your mom goes out for shopping and everything, and your first instinct is to run into her closet, get her red high heels or whatever dress you can find, and walk around in the house because you're alone at home. Like, if that counts as my first time as drag, I would say it's that. But getting into drag, my first time was at Harmona's Pride, and yeah, it was beautiful. So was drag freedom, rebellion, art, survival? It was definitely freedom, it was definitely art and rebellion. Survival, sure, I guess in a way, but freedom just to be, I think men in general would be a lot more happier if they stopped trying to be men and just thought to be, like stop pretending, like just be, man, just exist. Like, and I think especially growing up in a small town, queer, everything, you grow up with a lot of men just wanting to be men, and I'm like, but stop that. Stop. What is that even about, really? Just stop trying to be a man. We know you're a man. Just try to exist and not allow your masculinity to outshine the fact that you have feminine qualities, and you need to embrace that, because femininity is also very powerful. And I think that's where the rebellion part also comes in. It's just like, through drag, I allow myself to, you're not just this boy anymore, you're not just this man. You also allowing every part that you were growing up told and said that this is wrong, you can't do that, you can't like paint your nails, you can't like wear skirts, you can't do ballet. All of those things, they get stripped down, and you get into this drag character and with this persona, and suddenly it's just freedom and rebellion, because now you're telling the world, well, stuff that, I'm just gonna exist now. And I think that's very important. I think everyone should do drag. What does drag allow you to say that Nick maybe cannot? That's an odd question, because I think I am confident in my own way, and I'm always a standout. But I think in drag, it's also, well, it shouts louder, yeah, it's just, it's louder when I say I'm here. It's like, I am here, like I have arrived, says Fikile, Indeed. Do people generally misunderstand drag? Oh, a lot, especially in small towns. They really think like, is it a man trying to be a woman? Is it a woman trying to be a man? Like, honey, I am just being. Allow me to be. Let me exist. Like, if I am not bothering you, what is your problem? If I'm not in your face about it, what is your problem? At the end of the day, if you haven't seen me in drag in person, why are you bothered by the fact that I'm doing drag? Because you're still following my socials. You're still seeing what I'm doing online, and that is your business, really. You have the ability to scroll and move on about your day. I'm sorry, now I'm just venting, yeah, because I'm getting mad at those things. But people really misunderstand drag. They think it's just you trying to be a woman, when it's really just you trying to let your femininity show, let it shine. I want to know, what makes a good drag performer to you?
A good drag performer? I suppose she's a woman who can lip sync. I don't think one needs to be able to do splits and all of those things, even though I've been working on myself with that too. It's a great talent, I think, to be able to do all of the shebang and the shablam and the whatever the nonsense is. But I think all in all, drag is you putting on this character, this persona, this presence, you know, and owning it. But owning it with confidence again. And when you're lip syncing, you better know your words. You cannot be standing up there like singing like some clown. I don't know. Like, yeah, that's what I think makes a great performer. And also, just owning yourself really. For myself, I'm not really like a performance queen. I would like to do a bit more of performing, but I'm an outdoorsy person. You know, I do my photography. I do my content creation. I perform in places where I feel comfortable and where I feel more me, you know? And I think that's also what makes you a good performer, is the fact that you exist in spaces where you can see this is your comfort zone, you're owning you, and you're doing it with confidence.
Has drag changed your relationship with masculinity?
I think my relationship with masculinity started altering even before drag, you know? Like I said, like I've always, as a kid as well, like got into my mom's closet and dressed in heels and stuff because it felt fun. I felt free, you know? But with regards to the masculinity, femininity thing, it's like a lot of the times I would like to say that I wasn't really bothered with what people thought of me, you know? Again, it was only when the bullying started that, you know, I started becoming a bit more reserved. But with the masculinity, femininity conversation, you know, I don't think drag has shaped that much, but it's definitely made me more proud of my femininity and allowed it to exist more, you know, even in my masculine times or masculine presenting moments, you know.
And what part of yourself became louder through drag?
Definitely my confidence. Definitely my confidence, my truth, and also my love. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, you are also a content creator on TikTok with 260,000 followers. Was there ever a time that you felt scared by becoming so visible?
Never, no. Like, it's not like I ever dreamed of getting the following that I have now. I'm grateful for all of my followers on TikTok. I never thought I would have made it there. The only reason I made it there was because I was unemployed and had nothing else to do, so that's why I posted. But no, there was never a fear of like getting visible. I mean, look at us. Look at where we are. We have a whole YouTube series now, so we are here.
And in your videos, you talk a lot about your truth, your love, and your confidence, but what does confidence actually mean to you?
I think it's, again, you know, just owning it. Like walking into a room and not being afraid. I mean, we all have moments where you like are skeptical about like who's gonna be there and all of that, but I think just before you walk into that room, look into that mirror and just say, you know what, I've got this and I'm going and it's done, you know? Confidence for me is my whole personality. It's something that simply can't lack because it's part of my core, like, being.
So would you say that confidence is something that you're born with or something that you build?
Both. Maybe it's rather something you build, you know, that nature versus nurture thing, you know, like my parents really like instilled confidence in me, but I think if, you know, your parents didn't get you to be confident, I think it's definitely something you can build in your adolescence or adult life, whenever. it's really just you saying, stuff it, I've got this. I mean, you've definitely read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Blank. Yeah, and I mean, in that book, it's also just like, don't mind the haters. Like, hate that they mind, I guess. I don't know, I don't even hate that, but just move on with your day. Like, yeah.
Was there ever a time also that you felt like you are just constantly over-explaining yourself to people? I know that's the case for myself, but was there ever a time for you that you felt like people are just not understanding what you're trying to say, you're constantly explaining and over-explaining?
Every day. Every day. And I want to say it started also when I was a child, you know, it's like, I remember, and rest his soul honestly, but I have to talk about him. My uncle. I remember my uncle would say things like, Niku, should we be worried about you? Like, do we have to be concerned here? Because I was playing with Barbie dolls, I was like, only had girlfriends, and so all the signs were there. He definitely knew when he asked that question of, should we be worried? And my answer would be like, no. And you know, in that moment, like, you go from your limp wrist to just toughening up and sitting up straight. Like, at some point, I feel whenever I visited my hometown, I would like have to like rigid myself up again to like kind of act straight. Not that I think I ever did, you know, because even my girlfriends back then said that this is our friend who's not, what? Yeah, what? This is our friend who's not gay, but like should be gay or something like that. I don't know. Like, it was just always like, this is the one who's one of the girls, basically. And I think also that's quite like mean and rude to say, you know. To those girlfriends, honestly, they were like a great part of my development, but I do think looking back at it, it was actually not the right thing to say. Because at the end of the day, yeah, I was one of the girls, but like to say all of those gay things and whatever, it's just like, without me even knowing who I was not the right thing. But yeah, no, it just becomes tiring also having to repeat the same narrative and having to just kind of prove that you are this person or that you are not that person, and people not understanding what that means. And I'm like, I am not here for you to understand. I am here for you to respect and for you to know that I am here. Like, I don't agree with all your life values. I don't agree with all the lifestyles you live. But allow me that same courtesy.
And how do you deal with the people who don't know?
When you don't know, it's okay. But when you do know, it's a problem. So, obviously back then, neither one of us knew that that was a problem. So, it's fine. But knowing that we're having this conversation now, and the people who are listening to this, if you are one of those people, I'm telling you not to do that. Unless your gay bestie is okay with it, then that's a conversation you guys have, you know. But don't just go out and use words that, if you don't have that relationship, you know, don't do it. But, yeah, no.
How are you able to stay so soft in a world that wants queer people to harden themselves?
I look in the mirror and I tell myself, let's just go. And I go, like, I don't care. I think, you know, after moisturizing, I just lift up my chin and I just don't bother myself with whatever else anyone else is saying, you know. And I think the moment you have that ability to not care about other people and what they think, you honestly just like grab yourself and you become this elegant, effortless being floating along the crowd, you know? So, yeah. And also, words of affirmation, just give yourself that beauty talk, give yourself that confidence talk, and you immediately become more entwined with you, and don't just keep it to yourself. Share that love that you have for you with the rest of the world. That way, you take that gentleness from you to everybody else.
So back to your TikTok. When did you realize that people were connecting with your content?
I think the first time was literally the one video that I can say trended. So there was a guy who made a video that says, hey bro, there's no other way you can say A-E-I-O-U, like that's the only way to say it. And I was like, what do you mean, you're South African? Like, you should say A, E, I, O, U. We all learned that.
I love that.
But that video got like 10k views, which wasn't a lot, but back then for me it was like a lot. And I think from there, because I got that 10,000 views, I was like, okay, I can do it. And I just started having more fun with it, So that's where it kind of started, I guess.
Did you expect people to relate to your story, or do you expect them to relate to your story in general?
I mean, I don't really have much of a story now yet on social media, but I think that's why we are having this conversation as well. So that people can see more about who I am and what I do. But yeah, no.
Now, with 260,000 followers, what responsibility comes with that type of visibility?
I guess you actually hold a lot of power with regards to being able to state your opinion. Like some people follow that because they're inspired by you or things like that, But there's a lot of influence. I mean, you're an influencer. There's a lot of influence that you have on people. And it's important that when you say things, that you say the right things and that you know that you believe in what you're saying,
And has your social media changed your understanding about community?
I think so, I think it's interesting that the people who are my biggest supporters on social media, aside from my mother, but I think the people who are your biggest supporters are strangers and not necessarily people from your hometown or your closest friends.
What kind of representation did you need growing up?
Oh, I would have loved if there was someone like me in my hometown. What do you mean? Like, to see someone just living their truth, showing so much love, and just being confident. I would have loved a character like me, like growing up. Unfortunately, I didn't have that queer adult to look up to. Everybody in my life was straight, and honey, I still turned out how I am. Beautiful. And confident. But yeah, I didn't have anyone like me, and I think it would have been so nice to just have that person to talk to and identify where I am and what I'm doing, and just be like, listen, do you want to talk? Just to have someone like that would have been nice.
Do you think queer joy is political?
It's a whole conversation, considering that we're having this conversation. Let me say that. Because the moment you have to discuss whether or not, being queer or having queer joy is political, means that it is, I mean, if you look at Uganda, goodness, queer people there are fighting for their lives. They will get murdered if they identify as gay, queer, LGBT, whatever. Why are you gay? It's a big problem there. But for South Africans, we've got that privilege of being allowed to just, I guess, exist more, even though we're still fighting battles of, people speaking hate on us and wanting to fight us in bars, and, also people killing us. It happens. More often than what we know. So yeah, no, queer joy is definitely political, because we are still fighting those battles. We are still just fighting to be happy. And I think in the bigger spectrum of things, that's so unfair, because that should be just a human given thing, One shouldn't be fighting or making it political to just have joy.
And what does pride mean to you now in comparison to when you were younger?
I didn't know about pride when I was younger, hey? I didn't know about all the rainbows and the gays and like I didn't grow up in that environment. I wasn't exposed to any of that. But what I know about it is that it's definitely a protest, and I love that. I've always loved, marching at the front for human rights. So what I know about pride or how I feel about it now is just I'm happy that it gives me freedom to represent others like me.
I want to know what kind of legacy do you want to leave creatively?
I also want to leave a legacy of love. Like, I want to leave a legacy that I told my truth, without worrying, And I want to leave a legacy of owning it, being confident.
Now, if young Nick from Limpopo could see you now, what do you think he would say?
Why are you gay? I'm kidding. I don't know. I think he would be at all as wondering why is this man's hair so long? Because growing up, everybody has short hair. Nobody grows out their hair like that. I'm also somebody who paints my nails. I don't have them painted today, but I think he would have just been like, okay, this is interesting, but I like it, because I also vaguely remember me painting my toenails with my sister's paintbrush, just because I saw she had that done. And I think if I had someone like me also as an adult, whatever, it would just be like, okay, so this uncle can do it, so can I. And I think that's okay. I think kids should definitely also have that freedom to just say, listen, I want to apply nail polish to my nails, without any backlash from parents or public. Kids should have that freedom to just choose to exist, and that goes for every child, every queer person, every human.
So we're nearing the ending of this episode, and I want to give you some rapid questions.
I'm ready.
So,
Let's go.
Give me 3 words that describe you.
Truth, love, and confidence. Hello.
Okay, and then a song that feels like your life.
Turbulence by Pink.
What makes you feel most beautiful?
A mirror.
What still scares you?
Crocodiles and cotton.
So we're just throwing crocodiles and cotton at you. And my final question to you is, what does home mean to you now?
A happy place.
I think what I really love about your story is that you never abandoned where you came from. You only transformed it into something bigger.
I think that's what queer people do. We create possibility where there wasn't any before.
Stay tuned for episode 2, where we will be discussing first crushes.
Bye!